Hi everybody, this is Holly with Concourse Hosting, and with me today is Jason Repko as well.
Hi folks, thanks for joining us.
Alright, so today we are going to be going over how to make a Timeslice gift report using Tableau. And so for those who have not used GoToWebinar with us before, we like to take questions just as they come. So if, as we're going through this presentation, you have a question that comes up, feel free to go ahead and just type that into the little questions box, and we'll go ahead and answer that for you. So today we are going to be connecting to data that is stored in our Tableau server. So one of the services we provide here at Concourse is RE query recreated in Tableau server as a data source. So we're going to be demonstrating that data source today. So I've already connected to our Tableau server site. You can see connected to Tableau server as Holly Kendall. And these are all of the data sources that are on just our sample data site. And I'm going to go find our gifts data source. If I can, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and select that, open this up here, and everything looks good to me. So we're going to go to our sheet, and before I get building, I'm going to pop this out just a little bit and just give a little walkthrough of the different fields here.
Let's see, Holly, actually before you do that, or while you're doing that, let's have our participants just to give us a little bit better idea of your familiarity with Tableau Desktop and or Tableau Server. If all participants just go down to the chat window and type in desktop. If your experience with desktop is none, put desktop none. If it's some, put desktop some. If it's yes, you have experience, then just put EXP, experience. So desktop, none, some, or yes. The same thing would be helpful with Tableau Server. If you've used, we've probably seen a lot of people have used Tableau Desktop, but you may not be implementing Tableau Server either at your organization or your business. Then do the same thing. Say server equals none, some, or yes. And so I'll take a look at that, and I'll probably, as Holly goes along, if we want to touch maybe a little bit more on a general concept of either desktop or Tableau Server, we can do that for if there's enough people that need a little bit of that, and if not, we'll stay away from that high level and talk in a little bit more detail. So thank you.
Yeah, and actually just going over just the comments that have already popped in here, I'm seeing we have quite a wide spread of people who have quite a bit of experience, and then some who have no experience at all. So actually very good. So what I'm going to do is just spend a minute talking about what we're seeing here, and for those who are experienced, just hang on for 1 second. We'll get into the more in-depth stuff in a moment. And so what we're looking at here in Tableau Desktop is kind of the generic building center. So when you load in any type of data source into Tableau Desktop, in this case we are looking at an extract that is currently stored in our Tableau server, which is kind of a storage and sharing powerhouse of Tableau's products. And when Tableau looks at your data, it breaks it up into dimensions and measures. Here, we'll get a little highlighter here. So we have dimensions and measures. And it also breaks things down into colors. If I mouse over, you can see that things down here in the measures are for the most part green. And if I mouse over things here in the dimensions, they're for the most part blue. So if something is sorted into a dimension, it means it's like a category. And if something's sorted into a measure, it's usually a number or something to fill up that category. So if I were to just open up some of these tables here, if we looked in gift information, in this case, we can see that, all right, a lot of these make sense as categories of things. We have like a date added, a currency type, constituency, categories. If I were to look at the same things down here in the measures, gift information, it's amount billed, amount coins, gift amount. We're actually looking at, some type of number that fills in these categories here. And then going to the next level of separations, if something is green, it means this is a continuous value. And if something is in blue, it means it's discrete. So about 99% of the time, your dimensions are going to be in blue and your measures are going to be in green. But you'll find a handful of situations, and actually we'll be encountering one of those today, where we'll actually have a continuous dimension or a discrete measure. And so for those of you who have no experience with Tableau Desktop, feel free just to ask a question as I'm going through, and I will stop and give a quick explanation of that. And then at the end, I'll get into kind of what is Tableau Server and how does Tableau Server fit into the greater picture of what we're doing right here. And so I had mentioned in the beginning that we are using a data source called gifts from RE-Query. So what we have done is we have gone ahead and recreated the queries that you were familiar with in Razor's Edge in Tableau Server. And this particular one is your gifts recreated as just a singular data source. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out my drawings. And I'm going to go ahead and start building the report. So to build something in Tableau Desktop, your first step is to always take one of these fields and drag and drop it either onto columns or rows, which will cause this center area to populate. So I want to go ahead and take this date, which is called gift date fiscal year. And you might be able to see a little equal sign next to the symbol, which means this is a field that we have created for you. This is a calculated field. This was not in RE-Query. This is something that we took the data that came from RE-Query and then made this calculated field. So what this particular field does is it looks at your data and is able to calculate your fiscal year based off of your data. So in this particular case, though, for sample data, the fiscal year just begins in January and ends in December. But if your fiscal year started in July and ended in June, it would be able to see that. So we have gift date fiscal year, but it looks like we're looking at all of the possible years that have data in it. That's not very helpful when we're doing something like a Timeslice gift report, where we just want to see all of the gifts that were given to us within a certain period of time, and I think 2002 to 2017 is not helpful. So I'm going to click this little plus here, and this is one of the simpler ways that you can drill down. There are, of course, other ways to do it. This is just kind of the more straightforward one. So we now have gift date fiscal year is the highest level, then that breaks down to quarters, then that breaks down into months. I just want to look at a period of months right now, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the year and the quarter. But of course, right now we're just seeing all of the months.
While Holly's doing that, I thought I might just make a quick mention of why we're doing this, why we have this gift date calculation. And we're showing you this. It's, so I'll just focus on that very quickly. As you know, if you use Tableau Desktop and you connect to a, if you use Tableau Desktop and you use Tableau Server, you know that you can connect to a data source. In Tableau Server, then you can go into that data source and set the fiscal year, and then from there on out, any calculation or any work that you're doing has your fiscal year into consideration. We are deploying Tableau Server for multiple clients, and we have multiple clients using the same set of data sources. Of course, it's their data, their own personal data that they see in populated in these fields. But in order to enable clients to use their own fiscal year, we've created this calculated field so that they can grab that from their fields over here in dimensions, place that into their workbook, and that that calculated field is looking specifically at that client's Razor's Edge data and then making the date calculation and specifically to their fiscal year from that. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation, Jason. All right, so we're currently looking at just a month range, but this isn't particularly helpful. We're just seeing all of the months in the year. So we need to filter on this to be able to get a more specific set of months. So I'm going to take this same field, gift date fiscal year, and drop it here on the filters. So from here we have an option to choose kind of the date range of this particular filter. In this case, I want to select relative date, which brings us to this window, which basically allows us to pick that relative range. I want to go to months and take a look at the last 3 months here. So if I hit OK, all right, our range of dates got very small, but we're looking at April, May, June. That is correct, months within a 3-month range. So I want to do something else, which will make sense kind of as we are going along with this. So I want to take this particular gift date fiscal year, because as you see, when I changed this one to a date range, it changed to green. I actually also want this one to be green, but instead of just months, I want to drill down to be even more specific. So if I click this little drop-down arrow here, I get this pretty huge toolbar that pops up, and it might be hard to see, but there's kind of a line that divides year, quarter, month, day up here and year, quarter, month, day from down here. Up here are discrete values. Think of like, oh, yeah, discrete values in the dimensions are usually above the measures, so this is above. And continuous values are below discrete values based on how they're stored over here on the left, so it's the same principle. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a continuous day. So that way we can see days where gifts were given spread out over a 3-month period. And these have select dates in here, but if something falls in between them, they still show up. I can mouse over and still see exactly when that gift date was.
And Holly, can I ask you a question? You're doing this, I'm assuming, because that you're thinking in advance of what you want your kind of default view for this workbook to look like?
That's exactly right. I'm thinking that if I need to make a weekly gift report, but I also want to compare, say, gifts from this previous week to this week to a previous week, we can set that up by using this date range. And granted, I gave a 3-month range just to show an example here, but if rather than having someone make a new report each week for all the gifts that came in, this report will just automatically update relative to the week that we're currently on. So, all right, I see when gifts came in, but it's not super helpful right now. I want to see, who gave these gifts. So we're going to go up to constituent up here in the dimensions, this table. We're going to drop down, and we're going to find name. And I'm going to actually pull this out a little bit more. Here we go, name. So we notice that this is name and then parentheses constituent information. This is because we didn't actually grab name from, well, we have name in this gifts data source, but this isn't actually from gifts in RE. We got this from constituents in Razor's Edge, and we moved that field into our gifts RE query data source because naturally if you're looking at gifts, you want to see who the constituents who gave those gifts are.
So again, something that you can do in a data source using Tableau Server. You can make joins and blends and such. So with this data source of fields coming out of the Razor's Edge gift query, we've simply added name out of the constituent query from Razor's Edge and joined that in this particular data source, so you have that available for you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have name of the constituent. I'm going to drag this out a bit more so we can actually see the full title. All right. I think I, though, also want to see the gift solicitor who's also attached to this. Otherwise, it's, you know, helpful, but I also want to see how my solicitors are performing. So, all right, constituent solicitors. Looks like the correct table for that. And similar to finding name, constituent information, I also want to find name. Did I scroll past it? Oh, gift solicitors. There was my problem. Gift solicitors, name. All right. So it looks like Bart Simpson is sure active in here.
Probably obvious that we're using the Razor's Edge sample database with fictitious data in this, so we've got 500. We've maxed out the records at 500 here in the RE database, RE sample database.
Gift solicitors. All right. So we have the name of our constituents, name of our solicitors, but I also want to know what gift types were given. So if we go up to gift information, let us find gift type in here. If I can find it, gift type. That looks great. And I also want to see gift subtype. I know like a handful of these will have, most of these actually will have null values, but there's a couple of subtypes in here I'd like to keep track of. I'm going to space this out a little bit more. Just looks a little too crowded for me. All right, so we have our constituents, we have our solicitors, we have our gift types, we have our gift subtypes. Now we actually need to see the gift amount that was given, because I can mouse over all of these and see who gave, when they gave, and what solicitor they were attached to, but I can't actually see the amount they gave. I'm going to go ahead and close this up here in gift information, and I'm going to go down to the measures and get this calculated field, gift amount, level of detail. And rather than dragging it on the columns or rows, I'm going to drag it here onto the marks card. First, I'm going to drag it onto label. So I do not like these lines that are appearing next to the label, although these are easy to read. I find the lines just a bit hard to see. So I'm just going to change this to a circle. Makes it a bit more eye-popping to me. But I also want to be able to see a bit more of a range when it comes to the color of these circles, because if I just very quickly were to look at this report, I can kind of see how the larger numbers pop out, but it takes me a second or two to be able to find those. So I'm going to take that same field, gift amount, level of detail, and drop this on color. So now we see that there's a color range here. And we can see the dark blues pop out immediately. But I don't really like that it goes from light blue to dark blue. It's kind of hard to see where a little bit is given to a lot is given in terms of the color threshold. Like there doesn't seem to be much of a difference between $400 and $55,000. So I'm going to go to color and edit the color. What I'm instead going to choose is a diverging color. So it changes from one color into a completely different color. I'm a fan of orange-blue. Red-green is also fine, but I find that if there's anyone who's colorblind at your organization, orange-blue is easier for them to read, of course. And I'm also going to reverse this. Makes sense that, in my mind, that if someone gave more money, it's like a hotter kind of color. And I'm also going to make this a step color, because if I apply it now, the gradient's still a little kind of fuzzy to me. So I'm going to make this a step color. And since I don't like having gray here, I'm going to just make this 4. So it's very clear if something is either dark blue, light orange, or dark orange. If I hit apply here, all right, now it's very easy to see those different amounts. All right, so we have all of the information that we need now. I can mouse over all of these different points, and it's very clear who is given what amount, what solicitor they are attached to. And, you know, this took me a little under 20 minutes to get to this point, so this is very easy to whip up here. But since we have some more time, I want to make this a little nicer to look at. It's a little bit hard to read, and of course, this doesn't even have a name. So let's go ahead and do some formatting. So all I did was right-click in this area, and it brings up this formatting sheet over here on the left. All right, so we're currently under fonts. So let's play with fonts for a moment. 9-point font is a little too hard to read. I'm going to make that slightly bigger. 10-point font, you can see that they all automatically adjusted to that. All right, got that. Let's also make the title a bit bigger. Don't think 15-point font with a different font is helpful, so I'm going to change it to the same font. I'm going to make it 20-point font, and I'm going to make it bold. And I will worry about the name at the end. That will be the last thing I change. All right, so I think it's a bit more legible now, but I'm finding it kind of hard to draw a line between the constituents here on the left, especially the ones in the middle, and how much they gave. I kind of have to do this with my mouse, which is difficult. Makes this very hard to read. So I want to add some shading to the background. So if I'm on font, I'm going to go ahead to this middle one, the paint bucket shape, and we're going to go ahead and change that. I'm going to go all the way down to row banding, and on the pane level, pane is kind of each one of these little rectangles here. Let's change that to light green color. It is money, after all. So that makes sense to me, changing that to a light green here. And so then the header, you can see that when I changed the pane color here to green, this one changed to a dark gray. So I'm also going to change the color of that one, probably to a light blue, just to show that there's a bit of a difference between the information happening here on the left and the information happening on the right. But I want this band to extend all the way over, so I'm going to take level and drag it all the way over to the left. That way it stretches all the way to the name of the constituents. All right, so the very last thing I'm going to do here is go ahead and edit the title. Take that into Timeslice gift report, and we'll go ahead and center that, and I'll change the color. I'm a fan of orange, so make that orange just so it stands out. All right, so if I were to just send this out as is, I'd say this is fairly good. It's very informative, but I'm making my end users only see the date range I provided. So if they would want to see something different, they don't have the option to do that at the moment. So the very last change I'm going to make, I'm going to go up to my filter, gift date fiscal year, and I'm going to show the filter. That way, whomever I share this report with has the ability to change this date range they're looking at. Oh, we don't want to see the last 3 months. We just want to see this current month. All right, well, I'll just filter on that, and here's this current month. Change it to previous month. Yep, everything is looking good. still easy to read, and the filter takes a second or two to act, so no insanely long wait times. And so that took me 25 minutes to be able to make this, and I'm pretty happy with how this looks. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, this is a quick and easy little tool that obviously you have in Razor's Edge and in Razor's Edge querying, but this gives you more flexibility in terms of what you can do with this. If you're a Tableau server user, you could then share this report as is with no filter over there, and you could send that out if you wanted to give a board of directors or CEOs, what have you, a monthly report on individual gifts. This also could be shared with development teams with that filter in there, like Holly put in, allowing them at any time, multiple times a day, to just pull this report up, change the date range on it, and immediately they've got their report based on the selections without having to go into Razor's Edge, open up query, change the parameters, run the query, make an export out of it, and then send that static file. If you're using Tableau Desktop and you're using Razor's Edge right now, you're probably, I'm guessing that 90% of people, probably close to 100% of people, are essentially using exports out of Razor's Edge. So you've got static little data sources and you're building your workbooks on those, and then of course as soon as the data changes or you want to update something, you've got to rerun the export, you refresh your workbook, and you redistribute it with whatever system that you're using to manage your files, and probably using Tableau Viewer Reader to share the files. But with Tableau Server, it's great because that's really the core part of Tableau Server is a place to store the content, a place to share the content, a place to slice and dice the content in views and ways that you may want to share them with different constituency groups, and then different ways to actually distribute that content via whether it's sending an individual report out, whether it's giving a user access to your Tableau Server content site and they can directly interact with that, whether you want that user to be able to go in and edit this. There's the ability in Tableau Server to use a web editor, which looks basically like what you're looking at here with desktop, and go ahead and make edits. And then, of course, from Tableau, you can subscribe people to particular views. So if you wanted to simply send out that board of directors, that monthly Timeslice gift report, you could do that. You could have that stored in your Tableau server. You could also have a version of it like Holly made right here with the filter, and that could go out to a different subset of users as well. So lots of different ways to share that. Looks like Holly's going to go ahead and publish this.
Yeah, so I just thought I could show you guys how to actually publish a completed workbook to Tableau Server. Pretty straightforward. Since I am already signed in and connected to Tableau Server, I just went up to Server, Publish Workbook, and we get this window that pops up here. It asks what project we want to publish this to. Default is something that Tableau automatically creates for every single site. I think I want to publish this into webinars.
The projects are, if I might just interject very quickly, projects in Tableau Server are simply folders of your content. So you've got workbooks, visualizations that you put into different projects, and as I mentioned just a moment ago, projects are a way that you can control subsets of groups and access to particular reports.
Mm-hmm. All right, so project webinars, name Timeslice gift report. Don't think I need to give a description for today. Show sheets as tabs, not super necessary here since we only have one sheet, but I'll go ahead and add that anyway. We have one data source connection, and yep, permissions are all set up, exact same as the project, so I can go ahead and publish it. And then Tableau comes up here as a little window. Since I'm already logged into Tableau server, it opens that up here. And we can get a quick peek into what this looks like in Tableau server. So we can see here, get out my highlighter again, we're in our sample data site. We're in the project called webinars, and we have the Timeslice GIF report opened up. Go ahead and erase all the drawings. And just like what we were able to do in Tableau Desktop, I can change the filter and be able to see the results. So this month, previous month. Yep, it looks great.
So one of the things that I just wanted to mention in terms of data sources, because I just alluded to it when I said that I thought 90% of people are connecting to Razor's Edge exports. What we have done for our clients here, what we've worked on pretty exhaustively over the last 2 years or so, is different versions of these data sources. At first, probably like many of you, we tried to take Tableau Desktop and connect it directly to the Razor's Edge SQL database, finding that what you see when you do that is not what you see if you're a normal DBA or kind of power user in Razor's Edge and you're used to using query, back-end SQL access and looking at and making ad hoc queries of your Razor's Edge database. It's not something that most people are doing. So then connecting to a Tableau Desktop was just like connecting to a Greek database. So what we've done over the 2 years is make one version and then the second version of data sources where our clients we've created a refresh process that between their daily hosted Razor's Edge database, which is getting backed up and doing all those things that you would normally do in a hosted environment. We're taking a backup, and every night we're running it through this XML and SQL stored procedure process that we have, and we're taking all the new information that's been put in daily into your Razor's Edge database, and it's populating into these data sources that we've arranged. We've arranged these tables so they look and feel like the fields that you're used to seeing and interacting with in Razor's Edge query, whether it's a constituent query, a gift query, so on and so forth. So we separated them into those RE constituent type queries and the fields that you'd see and use there, and they would act and move and you interact with them the same way. Then, and Holly, if you even would go back to the report in Tableau Desktop, yeah, so we can see the measures and such. So if you look at, you saw during this, Holly grabbed a particular, I think it was gift amount, LOD. You just roll over that really quickly. So these LOD, these calculations here are a kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, some typical type of calculations that you'll encounter again and again and again. And so those are available for our clients right there. The gift amount, a level of detail expression, a fund overall goal expression, campaign overall goal, those types of things. Those are there for you to reuse. So the big advantages of this is something that I alluded to as well, in the sense that you're not having to go back and run your exports again, and then connect your reports and then redistribute them. That's happening in this desktop and server environment. Every night our client's data is refreshed, and so the data in their reports, like this one right here, would be refreshed. So if this is shared out to, if you've got I'll give you just one last example before I put a period on this, going back to that board of director where you had a version of this where it's just set for a month view. And then you've also got a version in Tableau server of this report that's set with this filter over here, so somebody could go in every day and just check the filter to, hey, I want to look at it for today, I want to look at it for the next day, so on and so forth. They've got an active report right here that they don't have to actually go into Razor's Edge, refresh, and do all that file management, or you as DBA don't have to do that file management. The person who's working with and interacting with this content, he or she self, can do that. So it's a self-service type of reporting environment with this. If you've deployed a simple little workbook like this that gives you, essential daily information on gifts, you can create a scenario with Tableau Server and these daily refreshed data sources and these reports that you have that are simply just refreshing your data, so somebody can go in there and look at these views themselves. So I think if there's nothing else from us, we'll just kind of shift to questions. Just very quickly, Sarah had mentioned she wanted some clarification on hosting options for CRM. We'll go ahead and answer that offline. So we don't want to answer that now for everybody. But if there's any other questions related to this report, related to Tableau Server, Tableau Desktop, or hosting, any environmental questions like that, go ahead and fire them off, and we'll see how we can answer them.
Thank you, everybody.